Tonight, the Baltimore Orioles, led by baseball's Iron Man, Cal Ripken, take on the world champion Toronto Blue Jays and World Series MVP, Paul Molitor. It's the ESPN Sunday night game of the week. For the once mighty Blue Jays, the celebrations of 2 World's Championships, well, they've quickly faded into the shocking futility of last place. Friday, the Jays' offense continued to sputter. The Orioles won 5-1. Yesterday, Cal Ripken's homer in the 8th sent Toronto reeling to its 7th loss in a row. It was here at the SkyDome last October that the Toronto Blue Jays won their 2nd consecutive World Championship as they defeated the Philadelphia Phillies. Now tonight, Sunday Night Baseball brings you the Baltimore Orioles and the world champion Toronto Blue Jays. But how the mighty have fallen. The Jays bringing up the rear of the American League East and way behind Baltimore, however, right in the race. The Yankees winning earlier today. Also, in what is called the wild card race, the Orioles and White Sox in a flat-footed tie for the wild card position, pending the outcome of the White Sox ball game in Seattle. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller, along with Joe Morgan, your Sunday night telecasters. And we figured this ball game to be a titanic punch-out between the world champions and the ball club that spent heavily to unseat them, the Baltimore Orioles. But what do we have? We have the Jays with all of that all-star talent, guys like Devon White, Roberto Alomar, Paul Molitor, Joe Carter, and John Olerud, but they're dead last. And, Joe, what gives with the Jays?
Well, John, we're just like everyone else. The Blue Jays have won 2 World Series in a row, but we ask, what have you done for us lately? You know, they have the best RBI man in baseball in Joe Carter. They have maybe the best all-around hitter in Paul Molitor. An exciting player in Roberto Alomar at second base. But what they do not have is any hitting at the bottom of their order, and that's why they're suffering, not scoring enough runs.
All right. Meanwhile, the Orioles, filled with high hopes in the Baltimore-Washington region, Baltimorean Peter Angelos bought the ball club, promised to do whatever it took to bring a World's Championship to Baltimore. He spent heavily, more heavily than any other team, and the Orioles are in the race, but some in Baltimore feel like they've underachieved. Cal Ripken, the holdover, still leading the ball club in RBIs. He's having a great year.
Well, John, I think a lot of people feel they've underachieved simply because they brought in Rafael Palmeiro. They brought in Chris Sabo. They brought in Lee Smith. All 3 of these players have performed great. But what has not happened is some of the holdovers have not done well. You know, the Brady Andersons of the world. They need Brady Anderson to get hot, get on base for Ripken and Palmeiro.
All right, so we'll see the Orioles, who are going for a sweep here tonight and setting their ace, Mike Mussina, a 10-game winner, and he may well be the all-star starter for the American League in a couple of weeks. He'll be opposed by Todd Stottlemyre coming up. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by Coors Light. When you want a taste that goes the distance, reach for the silver bullet. Coors Light. Keep on moving.
Zay, you're out for a beer. What do you have?
Beer.
What if there wasn't any beer? Sorry, guys.
Made monolith, the CN Tower. And the roof is off. We're outdoors here on the shores of Lake Ontario. John Oates, the manager of the Orioles, and the somewhat beleaguered manager of the Orioles. And his ball club has been hitting a lot of home runs, 86 in 71 games, and averaging 5 runs per. And here's his lineup for tonight with a couple of changes. It will be Brady Anderson, his familiar leadoff spot. He's in a terrible slump. But Chris Sabo, for the first time in nearly 2 months, back at third base. He's been playing the outfield the last couple of weeks. Rafael Palmeiro, first base, and he's hitting well over 330. Cal Ripken, the RBI leader in the ball club. Yesterday's hero, the shortstop. Reliable Harold Baines, always around 300, the DH. Chris Hoyles, 12 home runs, the catcher. Dwight Smith, acquired a little over a week ago from California, left field. Mark McLemore at second base, and rookie Jeffrey Hammonds, also recently back from a long injury, is in right field, batting 9th. On the mound for the Blue Jays, right-hander Todd Stottlemyre, and he's pitched pretty well for the Jays so far, and also had to work in relief there for a while as they tried to have him replace the injured Dwayne Ward.
Well, he has been a jack of all trades. He was a closer at the beginning of the season, but as you mentioned, his last few starts, he's really started to throw well. They say he's been using his fastball a little bit more and being more aggressive. And let's take a look at the Blue Jays defense. There it is. And Roberto Alomar, 3 straight Gold Gloves at second base, and just a fine defensive player for the Blue Jays. We'll take a look at last year's World Series. This is Lenny Dykstra, hits a little looper to right. And Alomar right behind first base makes the catch. A lot of range for this second baseman.
He is an exciting player. One of those guys who's extremely exciting when he's in the field. Not many can say that. You start with Ozzie Smith and not many after that. So we're looking forward to seeing Alomar and watching these Blue Jays with so many all-star performers. And of course, as is usually the case, a huge crowd is gathering here at the SkyDome. Dan Morrison behind the plate, a veteran crew. Larry Barnett at first, Greg Kosk at second, and Al Clark at third base. Some of the Jays have been a little upset with the umpiring in this series, so we'll see if there's any residue from that ill feeling of the last couple of days. Here is Brady Anderson hitting .231, 7 home runs, 21 batted in, a low on-base average, and of course Brady has had a very difficult start and is in the midst of a terrible slump right now. 2 for his last 29.
And we talked about Stottlemyre being more aggressive with his fastball. That was a 92-mile-an-hour fastball to open the ball game.
And it's 0-2. Again, 92 miles an hour. Well, Joe, this guy, Stottlemyre, has always been an enigma here in Toronto because he's had the great arm with the possibility of being an outstanding pitcher. They keep waiting for it to happen, but it just has never happened.
That's exactly correct. I mean, if you watch him throw the ball, you can't imagine that he's not going to be a winning pitcher, especially on a team like the Blue Jays.
Well, the Orioles always struggled against Stottlemyre. They never beat Stottlemyre until the final weekend of last year. And the count goes to 2-2 now to Brady Anderson. Joe, fiddle with the jugs gun a little bit, will you?
Yeah, that was an incorrect reading.
I think he got hit by that last foul ball. And the count goes to 3-2.
And here I was going to mention, John, one of the problems that Stottlemyre has is throwing strikes on occasion. He'll get ahead and he can't finish the hitter off. And sometimes he overthrows his fastball.
That one is hit high in the air to right center. Joe Carter, easy play. The SkyDome, the Blue Jays, who regularly draw 4 million fans for a season's worth of ball games here, but they could get the test this year with the ball club really struggling. This is the lowest the Blue Jays have been in years and years and years. 13 games back of the Yankees right at the moment. Now Chris Sabo. And the breaking ball in there for a called strike. Sabo hitting .252, 6 homers, 26 batted in, but 17 RBIs in 15 games where he played the outfield right through yesterday. Hard slider swung out and missed. Strike 2.
Well, Sabo's a good fastball hitter, and we see Stottlemyre go away with the breaking ball. You try to stay away from him with the breaking ball if you can.
Breaking ball again. He broke his bat. This is Domingo Cedeno. Out number 2.
Well, you could see Cedeno had problems with that ground ball, and he made an error yesterday that was very costly to the Blue Jays, and he has not been as consistent in the field as the Blue Jays would like. And I find it difficult sometimes if you're a major league shortstop to have trouble on AstroTurf. You will have more trouble on natural turf because you get some bad bounces, but normally you get good bounces on AstroTurf.
Here is Rafael Palmeiro, .336 batting average, 13 homers, 40 runs batted in. Big curveball is too high, ball 1. Palmeiro was almost an instantaneous sensation in his new town of Baltimore. There's a foul out of play. 1 ball, 1 strike. He homered there opening day. Received an ovation. The fans wanted him to come out and take a curtain call, and he said, you know, that's the first time in my career that the fans ever wanted me to come out and tip my hat like that. And he has kept that batting average up around .330 to .350 all year. 2-1. 2 down, nobody on. And Cal Ripken is on deck. He would be next.
The thing that I have been impressed with Palmeiro is his power production over the last couple of years. It continues to go up. He's become a more aggressive hitter. I think hits more home runs, drives in more runs. Pitch.
Sharp curveball. 2-2. Yeah, you know, Palmeiro hit 37 home runs last year. That was the rap on him early in his career when he was with the Cubs, that he was just a guy who hit a lot of singles to left field. And he worked at it. He developed himself as a guy who could hit the long ball. 3-2. In fact, yesterday, Juan Guzman here was rolling along with a one-hitter in the 8th inning, 2 down, nobody on, and then Palmeiro singled just in front of Ripken's game-winning home run. He struck him out with the fastball. 3 up and 3 down. Stottlemyre trying to be the stopper for the Jays tonight.
Oh, wow, this is...
Think of the Jays, I think of Toronto 15, Philadelphia 14 in the World Series. That's what I think of. Well, there's Mike Mussina. He'll try and shut them down tonight. He did so back in May at Camden Yards of Baltimore, and he has been, Joe, one of the premier pitchers in the American League this year, and may start the All-Star game this year in Pittsburgh.
Well, he has pitched very, very well, John. He has 4 excellent pitches he uses. He has the 4-seam fastball. This is a riding fastball. He strikes you out high. This is the sinking fastball, the 2-seamer. And he has a great knuckle curveball. It just goes straight down with no spin on it, and a regular curveball he throws. And he also throws a changeup. Not quite the circle change, but it gives you the same effect.
So Devon White will lead it off for the Blue Jays. White, a switch hitter, will bat left-handed. He's hitting .290 with excellent power. 10 home runs, 36 batted in. First ball swinging right to McLemore. And just like that, there is one away.
Well, John, White was 2 for his last 23. Now he's 2 for his last 24.
Got there in a hurry. White center field. Allen second base. Monitor the DH. Joe Carter right field. Olerud first base. All 5 of them all-stars. Mike Huff left field. Ed Sprague really struggling third base. Pat Borders, the catcher, also struggling. And Domingo Cedeno in place of the injured Dick Schofield, who got beamed here the other night. Now here is Roberto Alomar. And in the midst of this last place funk of the Blue Jays, there is Alomar hitting .332. Ball 1.
Well, John, they've lost 7 in a row, the Blue Jays have. Carter is 0 for his last 14. Olerud 1 for his last 17. And now Devon White 2 for his last 23.
And 2 for 24.
Yeah, 2 for 24 now. And so that actually tells you a little bit about the way the Blue Jays have been going. And in fact, in their last 65 innings, they've only had 1 inning where they've scored more than 1 run, where they haven't scored 3 runs in any 1 inning in the last 65.
And that's a called strike. It is 2 balls and 1 strike. 65 innings is just a little more than the equivalent of 7 games, and that's how many they've lost consecutively here. Baltimore beat them here Friday 5-1, and then beat them again yesterday 4-1. A strike, and it is 2-2 to Alomar. Cito Gaston, he's kept his wits about him.
Yes.
And Cito's a very kind of a low-key type, very level-headed. Probably what they need right now in their slump.
And of course, there's always 2 schools of thought on that, and one is, you know, if you're quiet and just give the guys a chance, because if you get mad at them, at least this is the way Cito feels, he has never seen a player perform better because the manager was mad at him. But then a lot of managers think they need to wake somebody up sometimes by yelling. So 2 different schools of thought when you're in a slump.
2-2 to Alomar. Whoa. Very close.
Excellent pitch there from Mussina. Good sinking fastball away. This ball starts towards the outside corner and then just really sinks away.
Well, you can see from the rooftop camera there that it was a little off the outside, apparently, just as Morrison called. That's fouled and out of play. 3-2. One thing that's typical of Mike Mussina is he has excellent control. He throws pretty hard, but he just throws strikes all the time. Rarely walks anybody. Out of play down the left field line. Still 3-2 to Alomar. Well, you mentioned some of these Blue Jays who've been in slumps, Joe, and it's very true. But the problem with the Blue Jays is that those same guys could have been slumping last year, and maybe Alomar and Tony Fernandez might have helped get him out of it, or the last couple of months, or Ricky Henderson and a Fernandez might have contributed, or Ed Sprague. Nobody has contributed all year long except those five. The Blue Jays this year, when they were going well, it was because the first five were going well. They just have not, in effect, they have not replaced Tony Fernandez or Ricky Henderson with anybody productive. And Ed Sprague, who drove in 73 for them last year, hitting 6th, 7th, or 8th, has also been in a bad slump.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about the Blue Jays is that they have really changed their team each time in the last 3 years. Even after the first World Championship, they made a lot of changes.
They struck him out. That was the 10th pitch of the sequence to Alomar, and Mussina, after getting quite a battle from him, has prevailed over Roberto.
This is a breaking ball from Mussina, and we'll try to see if it's the knuckle curve or the regular curve. Well, it looks like the regular curve ball that goes down. Good pitch from Mussina. Wasn't the knuckle curve.
Well, Roberto Alomar, who was awfully tough to strike out, has struck out. Now here is Molitor, hitting .338, 8 home runs, 48 driven in. First ball swinging to center. Brady Anderson, plenty of room out there. And then to right center for the catch. Each team goes down in order in the first inning. Cal Ripken and Harold Baines coming up. No score after one from Toronto. Who was an outstanding pitcher for many years with the Yankees. Now the pitching coach for the Houston Astros, Todd Stottlemyre, trying to be the stopper for the Blue Jays here. They have gotten excellent starting pitching in this series as Cal Ripken leads it off, but the Orioles have won each game of the series nonetheless. Cal Ripken hitting .296, 9 home runs, and 50 runs batted in. He leads the club in that latter category. And barring a work stoppage, that's a labor term, the venerable shortstop is now 162 games from equaling Lou Gehrig's consecutive game record, or 1 full season. Joe Carter in right field. And that's one away. Now let's go to Gary Miller.
All right, thank you, John. We're posting you on other games in progress, including one that was still going when they began in the SkyDome. A wild one between the White Sox and Mariners. Jose De Leon, bases loaded, facing Jay Buhner. Griffey had just walked with the bases juiced. They got within a run, but De Leon freezes Buhner on the outside corner. White Sox win 8-7.
And here is Harold Baines, a former member of the White Sox. Now with the Orioles, hitting .294, 11 home runs, 34 driven in. 1 ball to no strikes. All the way. Now Harold Baines has created problems for Stottlemyre in the past. He has 4 home runs against him and only 31 career at bats. There it is, .387 average against him. And the Orioles had never beaten Stottlemyre until the end of last year, but now they've added Baines and also Palmeiro, each of whom has always hit well against Stottlemyre. So it's a little bit different now for them. Just a little bit outside. 2-2 to Baines. 1 out, nobody on. Second inning, no score.
When you look at the Orioles batting order, John, it fits very well in that the hitters fit well with each other. Brady Anderson is left-handed, then you come back with a right-handed hitting Sabio, or left-handed hitting Palmeiro, or right-handed Ripken, left-handed Baines, right-handed Hoyles, left-handed Smith. That's the ideal lineup.
All the way.
Left, right, left, right, left, right. There, in that direction, the pitcher on the mound cannot get comfortable. If you have 3 straight right-handers, he can get in a groove, throwing that slider low and away and fastball up and in. When you have left, right, he can't get in a groove.
For much of the early part of the season, Palmeiro was hitting 3rd, as he is tonight, but then Baines was hitting 4th against right-handers, and Ripken hit 5th. But they'd find that late in games, they'd bring in that tough lefty in the 8th and 9th inning to face both Palmeiro and Baines. It was kind of convenient for the other manager. Shallow left. Mike Huff, number 2.
And that's why the lineup works very well, because you can't do that now. And when you take a look at Stottlemyre here, when he pitched to Andre Dawson on Monday, the first time up he hit Andre. Now watch, Andre fires the ball back out, and next time up Andre gets hit again. Stottlemyre is ejected, and he gets very upset because he's ejected. And now we're back to Sunday night baseball.
And he got tossed, and then a little while later, Cito Gaston, his manager, also got tossed. These have been frustrating times for the Blue Jays, to say the least. Stottlemyre, a guy who is noted for pitching inside. He's hit 7 batters this year. Chris Hoyles to center field. Devon White. And that's it. 3 fly ball outs for the Orioles. 6 in a row retired. We'll see Joe Carter, World Series hero, and then John Olerud when we get back.
Everything's in perfect balance, and just a quick swing down the stretch. Paul Molitor kind of steps away from his hands. He doesn't push them back. He just moves forward on them. Now right there, similar position. Hands back, and because his hands are closer to his body, a little shorter swing than DiMaggio's, but both have good balance. And if Ted Williams says it, I believe it.
Ted Williams, and he may well be looking in tonight. We certainly hope he's doing well. He invited Molitor over to sit and chat a little bit at a big sports banquet this past winter, which was a thrill for Molitor. Speaking of thrills, Joe Carter thrilled a lot of people around the continent when he won the World Series with a home run in Game 6, and of course we've all seen it about 1,000 times since then. Joe Carter doesn't get tired of looking at it. But as he said this spring, he said, hey, it's springtime now, and it doesn't mean anything. Time to go out and do something new.
Well, Carter got off to a great start. He had a sore thumb at the beginning of the season. He felt like that really helped him because he didn't overswing, and he didn't grip the bat quite as tightly, and it just seemed like he was in a better rhythm. He wasn't trying to pull the ball. He has been struggling lately. He is 0 for his last 14.
Like he suffered a broken bone in his thumb this spring. And the count goes to 1-2 as he faces Mussina. He was hit by a pitch by Scott Erickson of the Twins. They thought he might be out a month or longer, but he made it back before opening day and then just got off to the hottest start of his career. Popped him up. Let's see if it's playable. Hoyles is over. It is. And Joe Carter's slump continues. 1 away. And speaking of slumps, here comes John Olerud, the man who was flirting with 400 last year. Struggling terribly this year.
Take a look at Joe Carter's hands here on this swing. He's a little late on this. See how he's tied up inside. He pops it up. But Joe Carter did get even with Scott Erickson. He hit a home run off of him and stood there and kind of watched it. I don't know if that's getting even or not, but
right here in this ballpark in the regular season. First time he faced him after getting hit by the pitch in the spring, and he blasted one. John Olerud hitting .277, 5 home runs, 37 batted in. He's hitting only .167 in his last 18 games.
John,
this guy was really almost slump-free last year.
Well, John, veteran pitcher Dave Stewart, who's been on championship teams with the Oakland A's and also Toronto.
That's a smash into right field. First hit of the game.
Dave Stewart made an interesting observation, I thought, about the Blue Jays and their struggles right now. He said a lot of guys on this ball club had career years last year. You don't think of the Blue Jays that way, but if you look at Olerud, Sprague, Hoyle, Borders, some of these players had their best years. And he said in order to win, you have to have several people have career years. And they're not having career years right now, and they're struggling. And that's kind of the situation that people talk about with the San Francisco Giants as well.
Now here is Mike Huff. Well, the Jays did not re-sign Ricky Henderson, and left field has been a wasteland for them this year. Now Huff playing tonight against a right-hander because nobody else has been able to do anything out there. Carlos Delgado, remember, he had a great start back in April. He was leading the planet in home runs for a couple of weeks and then didn't hit another one for, what, a couple of months. He's back in the minor leagues now. So now they brought up Sean Green, a left-handed hitter. He's struggled so terribly that Huff now was the only one of the left fielders who's hit at all. Now he's starting against the tough right-hander Mussina. 0-2 the count. Olerud at first, 1 out in the second inning. That's in there. Extra bases. Olerud will be held at third. It's a double for Huff, and he hit it on an 0-2 pitch.
Well, this is definitely a mistake from Mussina. He did not want this pitch up in the strike zone. This pitch hangs, and he lines it down the left field line for extra bases. That is not the spot that Mussina wanted that pitch, but that's how hitters get base hits on 0-2 pitches. A mistake by the pitcher.
So now here is Ed Sprague. Now last year Sprague was very reliable in spots like this. He was a very good RBI man, hitting lower in the order all year. He had 73 runs batted in, but not so far this year. Only 20 batted in. The changeup in there, strike one. It's interesting. Mussina's changeup, Joe, is regularly 15, 16 miles an hour slower than his fastball. The fastball's up around 92 tonight. That changeup 76.
But he has the knuckle curve in between.
We'll get a reading here from the jug's gun. Again, it's 0-2. Mussina quickly ahead of Sprague. Look at that, only 161 for the year.
Well, in this case, John, all he has to do is put the ball in play, and the Blue Jays will score a run if he grounds out to shortstop, second base, or obviously it's a fly ball to deep in the outfield deep enough.
Mussina here pitching to try and prevent any of those scenarios. Strike three call.
That was excellent pitching by Mussina. He started him off with a breaking ball or a changeup away, and then he threw a fastball in for strike two. And 0-2, you're thinking he may go away with another breaking ball. He comes right back inside with a good fastball right there on the inside part of the plate. And that's strike three. And now there are two down.
Two down. Here is Pat Borders, right-handed hitter. Borders 255, only one home run so far this year. Caught by Mussina. And the inning is over. And the Jays cannot get that hit with the men in scoring position. 1 for 16 as a team in this series. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by the more than 800 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts. And by the Body Heat Activated Degree Antiperspirant and Deodorant. No scores. Sunday Night Baseball. John Miller, Joe Morgan from Toronto. From the incomparable SkyDome, here is Dwight Smith. First ball swinging, drives one into deep left center field. Devon White looks up. Out of here. Home run. Dwight Smith, in his 9th at bat as an Oriole, has his first home run. And the Orioles are ahead 1-0. That's their first hit of the game. They just picked him up last week from California because they had not had a left-handed hitter on the bench all year long. And now Dwight pays a dividend big time.
Well, we take this first pitch fastball up and out over the plate, and Dwight Smith drills it, and the ball carries well here in the left center field. And he hits his 6th home run of the season.
Here's Mark McLemore, swinging strike. McLemore at 270, 2 homers, 16 batted in. Well, Dwight Smith. There's Lonnie Smith right next to him. The Orioles have they got the all-Smith team, I'll say that. They got Lee Smith in the bullpen. 0-2.
Well, Dwight Smith is saying I could have done that in Chicago if they'd have given me the opportunity, or in California.
Well, he had 5 home runs for the Angels. In fact, his final at bat as an Angel, he hit a home run. The next day they call and say, hey, we traded you. Curveball is down to them 1-2. He wanted to be traded, though, because they were playing this young fellow, Jim Edmonds, out there in a platoon with Bo Jackson. And Dwight Smith had become the odd man out. He and Bo had been platooning at the start of the year. Strike 3 call to McLemore. And he says something to Dan Morrison about it.
That's a good comeback from Stottlemyre. A lot of times when you give up a home run, you get cautious. He did not. He was very aggressive in this at bat to McLemore. Strikes him out with a fastball away.
Now this is Jeffrey Hammonds. Now in spring training, he was almost handed the Rookie of the Year award by many writers. Right back off the mound, almost off Stottlemyre, and Hammonds has a single. Out of Stanford University, very highly thought of. Great hitter in that U.S. Olympic baseball team the last time around, but plagued with injuries.
Well, here's a different look at good fastball line right back between the legs of Stottlemyre. He's lucky that ball didn't hit him. And Hammonds has a base hit.
Jeffrey Hammonds just getting back about a week ago after sitting out a good long while with a knee injury. And you see the big brace he's wearing even now under his right pant leg there. Here is Brady Anderson. Flied out to right center his first time, and a curveball misses. 1 ball and no strikes. 1 out, 1 on. Now, Jeffrey Hammonds, some people, some scouts would say he may be the fastest runner when he's right in the entire American League. But in terms of the art of base stealing, that's another story. He's still trying to pick it up.
Well, he's got a great guy to help him with that in Davey Lopes, who is the first base coach. Davey Lopes was an excellent base stealer during his career. And I'm sure he will be able to help Hammonds become a good base stealer. There's Davey Lopes.
And maybe a manager sometime down the road. He managed in that Arizona Fall League this last year and had the best record of any team in that league. First time he ever managed.
I played a lot of years against Davey Lopes, and I think he would make a good manager.
Broken batted into right field. Past the diving Alomar. Hammonds is going to head for third. Here comes Carter's throw. Not nearly in time. Hammonds has explosive speed once he turns it on. Anderson with a broken bat single. And the Orioles have runners at first and third with 1 out.
If you're a left-handed hitter and they're holding the runner at first, you do not have to hit the ball hard. You just have to find that hole on the right side. And Brady Anderson does a good job of making sure he pulls the ball. He broke his bat, but the speed of Hammonds gets him around to third base ahead of the throw from Joe Carter. Good play by Carter, but just excellent speed around the bases by Hammonds.
Now here's Sabo. Always a very good clutch hitter in his days with the Reds. That's why the Orioles got him. Anderson at first, Hammonds at third. The infield double play depth up the middle. And let's see, it's hit slowly. Alomar. They'll have to go to first. The run will score. Hammonds is in. Anderson to second, and Sabo gets a run batted in with the slow roller, and it is 2-0 Baltimore.
That was a good pitch there from Stottlemyre. He just did not get the ground ball that he wanted. The Orioles will take it. You see McLemore telling Sabo, good job, you got the run in, and that's all that's important. Just get the run in.
Sabo, as Rafael Palmeiro comes up in the game here Friday night, broke a 1-1 tie in the 9th inning with a double. And right after the game, in an interview, when asked about his RBI prowess, there's strike 1 and a curveball, Sabo said, hey, bubblegum cards don't lie. Meaning, check my numbers in the bubblegum card. I've always had a lot of RBIs. They asked Sabo how he liked playing here in the SkyDome, because that was his first game in the SkyDome. He said, hey, it's almost like playing in your hotel lobby. You got the restaurant, the bar, the roof. 1 ball, 1 strike now to Palmeiro. Now, this is a big spot, Joe. They got 2 runs home, but they got a man in scoring position, one of their best hitters up here. That 2-out RBI, an oft overlooked aspect.
Well, Palmeiro has not done very well in this situation this year, but he is a good hitter.
2-1. Cal Ripken is on deck. Is there a temptation here maybe to, well, you see that only 269 in his career with men in scoring position.
And you think of a guy that hits over 300, he really should have a much higher batting average with runners in scoring position, runners on base especially.
3-1. Now, why fool around with Palmeiro? You got the right-handed hitter up next, and you could start at least with a fresh count here, Joe.
Well, the problem is if you walk Palmeiro and you make a mistake to Ripken, it costs you 3 runs. You know, maybe a single by Palmeiro will only cost you 1 run.
So this is a big pitch here for Stottlemyre.
I don't think he will challenge him with a good fastball.
Well, he threw in the curve as Brady Anderson steals third base. Brady Anderson took off, got a huge jump, and made the steal uncontested as Palmeiro drew a walk.
Well, he gets a great jump. Stottlemyre's not really that interested in Brady Anderson. He's trying to make sure that he makes a good pitch to Palmeiro, and it is a breaking ball, so really no chance for Borders to throw him out. He got a good jump, and it was an off-speed pitch.
So Cal Ripken comes up. Cal flying to right his first time. Cal, a better than 300 hitter in his career against Stottlemyre, but not for power. He's never homered against him in 35 at-bats. Check swing? No. He swung at it, says Morrison. Got fooled in that low slider.
Well, this is the exact pattern he used on Ripken the first time up. He threw him a slider away and then a fastball in. And Ripken hit a fly ball to right field. Let's take a look. Pitch is definitely a ball down and away. Now let's see if he goes back to the same pattern. He went inside last time. Another breaking ball.
Almost the same pitch. A little closer to the strike zone.
A lot of pitching coaches will tell you, you throw a pitch until a guy proves to you that he can hit it. Other pitching coaches say you can't throw a good hitter the same speed, the same spot 3 pitches in a row. So who's right?
Well, if you're Cal, are you thinking fastball in the fist right here, maybe?
No, Cal's looking away.
Well, he looked it, he got it, and he still couldn't hit it. And that one may have been further away than any of the 3 pitches. Stottlemyre makes short work of Ripken. But the Orioles get 2-0 Baltimore, and we go to the last of the third.
Here's to you. Take a look at the last 3 pitches to Ripken. I said some pitching coaches don't believe you can throw a good hitter the same pitch 3 pitches in a row. And we'll take a look at these later.
Domingo Cedeno, strike 1.
And let's take a look at strike 2. Identical pitch, slider away. Ripken chases it. And strike 3, another one away. So I think the pitching coach that says throw it until he shows you can hit it was correct in that situation.
And that's too low. 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, hitters will sometimes tell you that some pitchers will make their life a little bit easier because they don't want to just use 1 pitch to get you out. Well, they want to show that they have different things in their repertoire. Jim Fregosi used to talk about Sam McDowell.
Right.
He said, I could not touch Sam McDowell. But every time I faced him, he'd get me 0-2. And then he wanted to show that he was a pitcher, not a thrower. And I just wait till he started to get me at 0-2, and he'd throw me the breaking ball because I could hit his breaking ball. 2-2 to Cedeno.
A lot of people had better success against Sam McDowell's breaking ball than they did his fastball.
Yeah. So the point from Fregosi was, hey, he got me 0-2 with the fastball. I couldn't touch it. Just throw me another fastball. I'll go back to the dugout. 2-2. This is Domingo Cedeno from the Blue Jay farm system. Cedeno is a switch hitter from the Dominican Republic, but the best batting average he has ever had at any level of the minor leagues was .232. Last year, 226 at Knoxville in AA ball. So he's supposed to be here for his glove, and even that was not too good here yesterday.
You know, John, you're talking about, you know, pitchers and philosophies, and I guess I can say this now since he's no longer in baseball, but one of my ex-teammates, Pete Rose, used to say, if pitchers weren't so stupid, we'd all hit 190. He said if they didn't make mistakes, we'd all hit 190. So they can't throw at him now, but Pete did say that.
3-2 to Cedeno. The 9th place hitter, leadoff man, Devon White on deck, and then Roberto Alomar due up 3rd in the inning. 2-0. The Orioles leading the Blue Jays here, last of the 3rd.
So I told you I learned a lot playing with Rose, Bench, Perez, Foster, all those great players.
Cedeno's got a hit. Hammond's over to cut it off. He bobbles it. Cedeno's going to try for second. And he's in there.
And that is good hustle by Cedeno. He never slowed down. He was going all the way. Hammonds did bobble the ball, but he had made up his mind he was going all the way. It's a line drive on a high fastball. It's hitting the right center field. Hammonds goes over. He knocks it down, and he comes up with it pretty quickly. But see, Cedeno had his head down all the way. He had headed for second base right away. I don't know how they score that, but it's a hit and an error. But he had his mind made up that he was going to second base all the way.
Devon White, the bunt. Mussina. He got White. Cedeno down to third base. Now, I don't think, Joe, that he's bunting for anything but a hit in that spot. Down 2-0. What do you think?
Well, I think he's struggling, and this is a perfect opportunity. If I don't get the bunt down and beat it out, at least I move the runner into scoring position. I think it's a good play, and especially the way the Blue Jays are going right now. Sometimes when you have a good offensive ball club, you have a tendency to wait for the 3-run homer. You wait for the Earl Weaver theory. I think you have to manufacture runs when you're struggling, and that's what the Blue Jays are trying to do here. So I really think that it was a good play in this situation.
Well, they scored it as a sacrifice. Here is Alomar, the infield back. Alomar pops it up. Orioles coming over, but it's in amongst the spectators. And the count is 0-1 to Roberto Alomar.
Well, now this is a situation where Alomar has to make sure that he gets Cedeno in. Even if he hits a ground ball to second base or to shortstop, you cannot pop up. You should be thinking about making sure that you do not pop up the fastball or the pitch. And the ground ball to any of your middle infielders, because they're back, will score the run.
Only Sabo, the third baseman, as you saw, is pulled in at this spot. High in the air, left centered pretty deep. Still going back is Dwight Smith. And that will get the run home. Because of the bunt by White, the fly ball by Alomar is worth the run, and it is 2-1 Baltimore.
And you have to give both Devon White and Alomar credit, and also Cedeno for hustling. So maybe this is the type of plays that the Blue Jays need to make to come out of the slump that they're in. Just manufacture some runs, and pretty soon some of the big guys will start hitting the ball out of the ballpark.
Well, indeed, now as you see Joe Carter out into the on-deck circle, it's a one-run game, and one swing of the bat could tie the game, even with nobody on here. Here's Molitor. He had 22 home runs last year. Sabo. And just like that, the inning is over. Molitor has seen 2 pitches tonight, and he's 0 for 2. An unearned run for the Jays. The Orioles lead 2-1. Harold Baines is coming up. On ESPN, the Yankees and the Red Sox. Wade Boggs hitting .341 for his new ball club, and the Rocket will be going against him. The Yanks atop the American League East, and the Red Sox are starting to roll again. They've won 5 of their last 6. Here's Harold Baines taking a strike from Todd Stottlemyre. Now the fastball is away. 1 ball and 1 strike. The second half of the Wednesday night doubleheader, the Giants and Dodgers. So it's the ancient rivalries renewed right here on ESPN Wednesday night baseball. The Yanks and the Red Sox, and then the Giants and the Dodgers all on the same night, starting at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. You get a chance to see Matt Williams, Barry Bonds. Bonds hit 2 home runs today in Denver for the Giants. Matt's got 27 already. And the Dodgers, Mike Piazza, Tim Wallach and company. The Dodgers atop the National League West. I mean, they are way atop it, but the Giants are only 6.5 out despite terrible problems. Todd Stottlemyre. You see a little wind in the Canadian night whipping through the SkyDome, and the slider strikes out Harold Baines.
That was a beautiful pitch from Stottlemyre, and really it wasn't the break of the pitch that fooled Baines. 1 mile an hour breaking ball. Now see, it's breaking, but the break didn't fool him. See, he's way out in front of the pitch. Watch, he swings before the ball even gets close to the plate. And that's what fooled him, the speed. Good pitch there from Stottlemyre.
Sounds more like a curveball, really.
Yeah,
at that
it did.
Speed, yeah.
More, the speed of it looked more like a curveball.
Here's Chris Hoyles. And that fastball sign. That's why people have always expected Stottlemyre to be a great pitcher. The guy throws real hard and has great breaking stuff.
Well, the problem is, in today's game, a lot of players, the fastball, the curveball are interchangeable. But they are two distinctly different pitches, and they should be used differently. And you see Harold Baines, he says, how could I go for that? You say, I've played 15 years in the big leagues, and I got fooled by a changeup.
He's fuming. We'll get the jugs gun back up there for you. He's at breaking ball over the outside. Strike 2 to Hoyles. Hoyles hit .310 last year with 29 homers. This year, off to a much slower start. Hitting only .224 coming into play tonight, but he does have 12 home runs. That breaking ball, he does lay off.
And John, let's go back to that last half inning when Devon White bunted and Stottlemyre drove the run in. If you're down 2-0, that seems like a lot if you're the pitcher. But because you gave up 2 runs in your half of the inning and your team came back and got the 1 for you, that really kind of pumps you up if you're Stottlemyre. And I believe you're seeing the effect of that here. He seems to be throwing the ball very well this half inning.
There's a high soaring drive deep to left center. Huff is at the wall. He's under it now. Makes the catch.
No, well, there was a catcher's interference.
So the play
does not
doesn't
count. So what was happening was the umpire was going to wait and see. If it was a home run, he was going to let it go. But since the ball was caught, now they call catcher's interference. Apparently he hit Borders' glove, I'm sorry, on the swing. Let's take a look. You can't really tell from there, but the umpire says that it did hit, and you can see that
Hoyles is
telling him that. But Hoyles also thought he got enough of it to get out of here, and he didn't want to have it called back.
So Hoyles reaches on what will be scored as an error, as here's Dwight Smith taking a strike, but he will not be charged with a time at bat. So it doesn't hurt his batting average, but Borders will be charged with an error on the catcher's interference. Is 1-1 now. Dwight Smith hit a home run starting off that 3rd inning. Hit it to deep left center field. This guy's always been just a very good pure hitter.
Yeah, he's been a good player. He was a good player with the Cubs, as we mentioned, and he's been a good player with the Angels, and he offers a lot coming off the bench. He runs well. He plays, out good defense. He's just a good player, good major league player.
Plays center field, play all over the outfield, and he's a very good pinch hitter last year. Dwight Smith, he came up back in '89 along with Jerome Walton. He was the 2 best rookies in the National League that year, helped leading the Cubs to a divisional title. Off the fist and out of play, 2-2 the count. Jerome Walton, of course, his career went the other way since then, but Dwight Smith has still been able to maintain at least a platoon role in the big leagues. Always seems to hit around 300 when it's all said and done. Big breaking ball, and it's too low. 3-2. Hoyles at first, 1 out of the inning.
Although the Orioles do not have a lot of speed lately, Oates has been using the hit and run, using a few more maneuvers on the bases, putting runners in motion. We'll see what he does here.
What do you think?
I think it's a perfect situation to do it.
Smith, the guy, usually makes contact.
Yeah, and just try to make something happen.
There he goes. He didn't make contact here, but Hoyles is in there. The 2nd steal of the year for Chris Hoyles, the Roadrunner. What are you talking about, no speed?
Well, Stottlemyre takes a long time to deliver this ball because his concentration is on Dwight Smith. You see Hoyles take a look at the plate to see what the pitch is. And it looks like a breaking ball. It is a breaking ball from Stottlemyre.
So here's Mark McLemore now. He swung at it. Well, right now, Joe, he's throwing breaking balls on almost every pitch.
And that usually gets him in trouble, because when he starts to miss with the breaking ball, then he has to come with the fastball, and the hitter knows what's coming. But the one thing I'm also noticing, John, is there's a tighter spin on his breaking ball. That's why so many hitters are chasing it out of the strike zone.
There's the fastball, but it missed. 1 ball, 1 strike. McLemore called out on strikes his first time. Now, each of the last 2 years, McLemore hit over 300 with men in scoring position. And last year for the Orioles, as a right fielder, he got to play every day and drove in 73 runs, even though he's not a home run hitter.
Good fastball.
Well, now McLemore's, as you see, this year it hasn't worked out as well for McLemore. They moved him down in the order. He hit second almost all of last year.
Well, John, when he was an outfielder, they wanted him to hit. He's a second baseman now. Not supposed to have to hit. Just play good defense.
Got him with the breaking ball. And Todd Stottlemyre struck out the side. He's got 6 all told. Joe Carter and John Olerud coming up. 2-1 Orioles.
There's a new name in minivans, and it'll blow you away. It's the all-new 1995
Field from the foul pole. Here at the SkyDome, looking back into home plate now. What a spectacular facility. The roof is off. We're outdoors near the shores of Lake Ontario. You see that the 5 levels there. The man who designed the ballpark wanted to get those stands out close to the field, and he designed it following the lead of the famed opera house, La Scala. And the dome, see how the intricate work up there in the dome. You know where they got the idea for that? A James Bond movie called You Only Live Twice. Go out and rent it now this week. Joe Carter, and he takes a strike. Whatever, Carter certainly loves it here. He had a chance to leave Toronto a couple of years back, chose to re-sign, loves playing here, and loves hitting here. He has 52 RBIs in this ballpark. Hit it off the end of the bat. There's Dwight Smith. Joe Carter having a hard time. He's 0 for 2 tonight and has gone hitless now in the last 3 games plus this one. Carter is hit below 190 in the month of June and has only 11 RBIs this month. Not bad for some guys, but Carter was having people bring out the Hack Wilson numbers. He was so hot earlier this season. Bound to cool off, though. That's the way it usually works in baseball. John Olerud. Single his first time. And this time, too. Dwight Smith hustles over into the alleyway to cut it off, and Olerud is 2 for 2 against Mussina. 2-1 Baltimore. Let's go to Gary Miller.
John, another wild marathon at Jacobs Field. The Yankees unloading on Jack Morris and Paul Shuey, who gave up this gopher ball to Mike Stanley. They were up 12-4, then survived a 7-run 8th by the Indians, but they've won 5 in a row, while the White Sox are within 2 of Cleveland.
And we will see the Cleveland Indians next Sunday at Jacobs Field. Sunday night ball at Jacobs Field for the first time. And we'll see the Cleveland Indians and the Minnesota Twins, 2 of the real exciting clubs in the American League, who have both been real hot. There's ball 1 on the changeup to Huff. Huff doubled his first time.
John, I'm looking forward to seeing the beautiful ballpark there at Jacobs Field. I haven't been there yet. Also, looking forward to going there because they're going to retire the number of one of my favorite all-time players and a good friend, Larry Doby.
Well, that's foul back. Well, Larry Doby probably doesn't get his due. The Jackie Robinson broke what was called the color barrier in baseball, the first black player in the major leagues. Larry Doby was the first black player in the American League and had the same set of circumstances, same problems as Jackie Robinson, and it was the only black player in the league for a while, and traveled around and had to endure all the racism and all of the taunts. And both of them, as history shows, did it beautifully, did it with aplomb and dignity.
Well, you're right. He doesn't get the credit he deserves because Jackie was the first, and no one remembers who finished second in the NBA or any place else 10 years from now.
Interesting way of looking at it.
They'll only remember. They only remember who was first.
They don't remember who finished second in the NBA or in breaking the color barrier. Well, we remember. second one. McLemore to first.
See, that's what McLemore's supposed to do. Turn the double play. He's not supposed to have to drive in all these runs.
We head to the fifth inning. Hammonds, Anderson, and Sabo coming up to run the bases back in the third inning, even with that brace on. Let's take a look and just see how fast he is right now, Joe.
John, we took a look at him last year running the bases. He waits for the ball to go by. It doesn't look like he's having any problems with his right knee, but he hustles around to third base, and that helped him, the Orioles, to score a run on a ground out by Chris Sabo.
He is an explosively fast runner. He's been telling Johnny Oates, the manager, that he doesn't feel any problem at all with his left knee, but Oates says sometimes you see him run and it looks like he isn't having any problems, and another time you'll see him run and it looks like that it is bothering him. So Oates still has reservations about it. That's also, I guess, the way the doctors feel. They have him wearing that brace on that right knee.
Well, John, speaking from experience, when you have a knee problem, sometimes it feels real strong after you work it. Other times it gets weak after you run 90 feet.
Facing Todd Stottlemyre. 1 ball, 1 strike. Leadoff man Brady Anderson on deck. Chris Sabo due up third in the inning. Stottlemyre was 6 strikeouts in the first 4 innings. Gave up 2 runs in the third. Hammonds singled in that rally and scored a run. Missing inside. 2-1 the count. Well, Hammonds is an extraordinary talent. He was a first-round draft choice, the 4th pick of the entire draft back in 1992. Played in the Olympic team that year. It's a swing and a foul back. Hit .414 over in Barcelona.
Is that in Spain?
Yeah, no, Barcelona, Oklahoma.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, just north of Houston. There's the pitch, and it's a little bit low, 3-2.
You mean the NBA champs?
Next time you take a road trip to New York, just don't get off. Tell them to let you know when they get to Barcelona. He chased that low breaking ball, and somehow, Joe, he hit it. I'm not sure how.
You're right. He's the first one to be able to make contact, especially right-handed on that ball breaking down and away.
His brother, now, Jeffrey Hammonds, played baseball at Stanford. His brother, Reggie, played both football and baseball at Northwestern. Pretty good students, these Hammonds fellows. Cedeno. He got it. 1 away in the 5th inning. Here's Brady Anderson now, the leadoff man. Anderson fueled that rally in the 3rd inning. It was his single to right field that sent Hammonds to third base, from where he scored on the Sabo ground ball. Brady Anderson, he signed a new 3-year contract during the offseason. That's a foul ball. He really burst upon the national scene 2 years ago. He's a leadoff man. He had 21 homers, 80 RBIs, which are amazing figures for a leadoff man, but he also stole 54 bases and played a Gold Glove quality outfield. And he was the igniter for this man. He's a key man in this lineup, but struggling this year.
Nice sideburns, too.
So far the sideburns are doing great, but the batting average has been anemic. What are those? That's the Beverly Hills 90371
whatever
5 sideburns. 2-1 the count to Brady Anderson. Brady is still playing center field right now in the absence of Mike Devereaux, normally the center fielder. He's on the disabled list with a hamstring pull. Too high to Brady. 3-1 the count. Johnny Oates, the manager, has echoed often in the past what you said many times, Joe, that he likes that leadoff man to have an on-base average up around 375. That's thereabouts. So Brady's well below that right now. Popped him up. And it's just out of play. So Brady got a little break on that one. Everybody after it. Stottlemyre, Sprague, and Borders, and nobody could get to it. 3-2 to Brady.
John, the first time up, he hit a fly ball to right field, and then he hit a ball off the end of the bat. Usually when a left-hander struggles, it's because he's getting under the ball like that. He pops up a lot of balls. Because left-handers usually have a little uppercut in their swing anyway, you will pop up a lot of balls. That's why you can hit the ball down and in so well, because you have a little uppercut in your swing. And when you get in trouble as a left-handed hitter, it's usually because you hit a lot of fly balls or pop-ups.
Well, there's a high drive deep to right center field. Carter going back. Dewan White going back. This one is gone. A home run. Number 8 for Brady Anderson. Just as you said, Joey. Got the fastball down and, well, instead of up, like the previous one.
No. But that was
just where he wanted it.
That's exactly right, John. That pitch, most left-handed hitters are good low ball hitters because they have a little uppercut in their swing. See, that ball's down. He gets under it just enough to get it out of here. But that's also the reason that you hit a lot of pop-ups and you do not hit as well. See, that pitch is down, so he gets under it with that uppercut swing right there. And he drives it over the right center field wall.
So it is 3-1 for Baltimore. Here's Sabo. He takes a strike. Well, Brady Anderson is funny because he's been swinging for the last 2 weeks at that high fastball and popping it up. And he just popped one up on a 3-1 pitch from Stottlemyre, and then Stottlemyre gets one down right where he wants it.
Well, he waved it up on the dugout and got another chance. Took advantage of it.
Right to Alamo. And that is an out. Sabo's 0 for 3. Brady Anderson is 8th home run of the year. And he's got a lot of strength. He says it drives him nuts because people always tell him that he should be thinking Brett Butler as the quintessential leadoff man. He says, I'm not like Brett Butler. I can hit the ball hard. I'm not a guy up there bunting and hitting little flares all the time.
Although this year Brett Butler has 5 home runs. So, well, maybe Butler took exception to that remark. It's going to prove to him that I can leave also.
Brett discovered with the help of Reggie Smith they were taking liberties with him early in the count, and he's decided to not let that happen. Palmeiro has struck out, and he has walked. 0 for 1. 1 ball, 1 strike to count. 2 down, nobody on. And the Orioles are leading the Blue Jays 3-1 here in the 5th inning. Rafael Palmeiro hit 37 home runs for Texas last year. Off the outside, 2-1, and then the Rangers ended up signing Will Clark. Palmeiro very upset about it, but ended up signing with the Orioles, who welcomed him with open arms, both the team and then the city. And he was welcomed as a conquering hero when he first came to Baltimore. It's been a very happy move for him thus far. Giving chase is Huff. Right there. And the Blue Jay fans let him take it. 3-1 Baltimore. We go to the last of the 5th. It's 2 there for a Clark strike. Sprague, big moment of this game. Runners at 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, 2nd inning. No score, and Sprague came up there and struck out on 3 pitches looking against Mussina.
He did not even get a good swing.
Another changeup. Strike 2. Mike Mussina is from a town called Montoursville, Pennsylvania. Small town. And that's where he likes it. He bought a home there and lives in Montoursville now in the off seasons. And the fastball made short work of Sprague again.
Well, he threw him a breaking ball to get ahead of him. It's another breaking ball. Right on the outside corner for strike 2. Now here's the fastball up. 92-mile-an-hour fastball up and out of the strike zone. Excellent pitch from Mussina.
Now here is Pat Border. Look out. The bat is up in the seats. There it is. The fella got hit in the wrist, I think, back there. And he may get a bat. They will return that one to Border. That fella right there, I think, got hit in the wrist.
Well, Border swings and lets go of the bat, and you always hold your breath in these type of instances, but the guy puts his arm up like he knew what to do there to protect himself.
Usually they go into the dugout and get another bat and give the person who got hit a souvenir. But I haven't seen one come out of there yet. That Borders did a comeback. He hit it sharply right back to Mussina. Mussina made a nice grab of it and saved a couple of runs. 1 ball, 1 strike. Mussina does a lot of things well, and you know, Joe, he's self-taught. He asked him, who taught you this, who taught you that? And he taught almost everything to himself. That ball misses, 2-1. He used to go into his basement as a kid with a rubber ball, and he would practice pitching against the cement wall down there, and at the same time practice his fielding, playing the ball off the wall. That's inside for a ball, 3-1. He said he believes that it helped build up his arm strength, the fact that he was throwing from an early age like that. It's also helped him with his control. He would watch games on television, watch different pitchers, and then he'd go down and emulate their styles. And it's a walk. The first walk allowed by Mussina. Coming up tomorrow, the World Cup continues on ESPN. Germany, some think they'll win it all, versus South Korea, 3:55, 12:55 Pacific. Also at the same time on ESPN2, Bolivia and Spain. That's tomorrow. World Cup action on ESPN. The Group C standings, Germany with a win and a tie, and nobody else has a win yet in that division. So Germany is certainly headed to the next round. So it's find out tomorrow for sure. Here's Domingo Cedeno. He singled to right his first time and eventually scored the Blue Jays run. 3-1 Baltimore, last of the 5th. 1 out, 1 on. Change up low, but talk about Mussina, Joe. He said what he did, he would emulate these different pitchers' moves, and then he said by doing that, and he could do even Louis Tiant. He said he would find different things in different pitchers' deliveries that would work for him. He'd try them all out, and he said his delivery right now is sort of a little bit of a lot of different pitchers' deliveries that he watched as a youngster, but not a delivery that was taught him by anybody. Even all of his pitches were pitches that he learned as a youth and then in high school. The only pitch that was ever taught to him is a slider, which he learned at the big league level from Dick Bosman, but which he almost never throws. That's fouled out of the left field line. 2-2 to count. He loves the competitiveness of it. And interestingly enough, he went to Stanford. But the reason he went to Stanford was because he knew they had a great baseball program. Not many go to Stanford for that reason.
No. Not just for baseball, anyway.
But he graduated Stanford in economics after 3 years and 1 quarter.
Like Mark was.
That's even quicker than you. 3-2 the count. He took an extra course every quarter, and then also attended summer school one summer because he knew he was going to get drafted after his junior year, and he wanted to have his degree so he could sign and be ready to go pitch. There goes the ball is swung on and missed. The throw to second by Hoyles is right there, and Borders is tagged out for a double play. We head to the 6th inning. Cal Ripken and Harold Baines with Chris Hoyles. 3-1 Baltimore. He's a manager's dream. John Oates, the manager, told us about it.
I don't ever have to discipline this ball club because they know that I'm a stickler to be on time. Well, Cal is never late for anything, never misses infield, never misses batting practice, never misses a flight, is always on time. I never have to get on anyone about running a ball out because if they see Cal Ripken run every ball out, the last guy on the ball club, they're not going to jog to first base. So in that vein, Cal makes my job a whole lot easier just by his actions and his work habits.
Check swing by Cal. Yesterday made his job a whole lot easier by hitting a 2-run homer in the 8th inning with the game tied at 1.
Well, the real winner here is the Orioles simply because what Oates is saying is if the star of the team who's been around for a long time, if he runs out balls, if he's on time, everyone else will kind of follow suit.
And for all those years, the thing about Cal is you talk to the Orioles about the fact that how does he play every day? The first thing they tell you is, how does he play every day? He never misses infield practice every day or batting practice. we sometimes plead with him on a hot day in August. Cal, just take the night off until game time. Relax. Wouldn't do it. Always said that, hey, the infield practice was his final preparation for the game. He couldn't miss that. And still never misses it, even to this day. Sometimes when the days start to mount and the heat grows, Cal will come in a little bit later and not take batting practice. And it's the only concession he's made to the whole thing. That one is hit pretty well, but he'll stay in the park. Joe Carter. And Ripken is 0 for 3 against Stottlemyre. And that'll bring up Harold Baines. I mean, this guy, there's not too many players who played in the time period where Baines has played who have been as consistently productive as Harold Baines.
I think the DH was meant for Harold Baines and hitters like Harold. Harold has had bad knees throughout his career, and if he could not have DH'd, he probably would not be in the big leagues now.
Well, they tried him in the outfield last spring, the year they acquired him. Because he came in and said, hey, I want to play the outfield when I can. And he immediately, after running around in the outfield a couple of days, developed fluid on his knees, and Johnny Oates has never asked him to go out there again. He says it's too risky. That's a strike. 1 ball and 2 strikes. And Baines has had at least 6 different surgeries, and he's had surgeries on both of his knees. And every day I'll say to Baines, say, Harold, how are the knees doing? He says, are you crazy? The knees are always doing terrible. He says some days they're just a little worse than others. 2-2. But he's also been a leader in this ball club, Joe. A guy that a lot of the young hitters will talk with to pick up pointers. Carter in on this one. Baines is 0 for 3. He chased the pitch up around his shoulders that time.
And it was also in, and he got jammed on the 92-mile-an-hour fastball. John, I don't know if you saw the note this week, but Fernando Valenzuela was signed by the Philadelphia Phillies. So Fernando's back in the big leagues. He's always been one of my favorite players. I like Fernando.
Oh, great man. Great competitor. He was the only pitcher while with Baltimore last year. He was the only pitcher the whole season to shut out the Toronto Blue Jays. Orioles, Cedeno gets it. And that's the inning. We go to the last of the 6th. The top of the order coming up for Toronto. White, Alomar, and Molitor. 3-1 Orioles.
Push. And everyone talks about your bat speed and how quick it is. He goes, it's not so much that your bat is that quick, but you have a hard push through the hitting area, and it appears to be quicker, but basically you're just starting from almost a dead stop and pushing your bat to the strike zone. Therefore, it allows me to get to more pitches. And I never thought of my swing as a hard push, but the more I thought about it, the more that made a heck of a lot of sense.
And I talked to Molitor about that today, John, and after he explained it to me that way, I looked, and maybe it is a hard push. You know, a lot of hitters throw the bat at the ball, but Ted is saying that he pushes it. And when you push it, you have more control, is basically what Ted Williams was saying to Molitor.
Devon White, the hitter, facing Mussina. The changeup, the center, Brady Anderson. And White is now 0 for 2 with that sacrifice bunt. Well, let's go back, Joe, again, and talk about this Molitor swing.
Well, let's see if you can see a push. Just kind of look and see if he pushes it. Right there, the extension looks like he may have pushed the butt. You know, I can see where you would get that impression.
Well, we'll take a good close look at him when he comes to bat here in this inning. He's up after Alomar. Here is Roberto Alomar. Struck out, but then hit a long sacrifice fly to deliver the Blue Jays' only run back in the 3rd inning. An unearned run against Mike Mussina, who's ahead 3-1. We're in the 6th. 4-1. Now, Mussina working tonight, Joe, means that he's probably due up again next Friday when the team gets back home to Baltimore, and then would be due up the following Wednesday. This is barring any kind of weather problems, things like that. But if that happens, then he would next be due up at the All-Star game. He would be the one who would have the most rest. I mean, he would not be pitching the final Sunday unless they worked him on short rest. So there's a definite possibility he could get the All-Star start, which is very premature to
I was going to say that, John.
Talk about it, but the reason I bring it up is because it's been talked about here at the SkyDome this weekend with Cito Gaston.
Oh, okay, good.
Cito has talked about it himself. And which is interesting, even ironic, because Mussina and Cito had the little run-in at the All-Star game last year, although there was a lot of mistaken impressions about it. They've talked about it since. Nice pitch by Mussina. 3-1 to Alomar, and he jammed him and hit the little looper right to Ripken. 2 down.
And Alomar has something to say to the umpire as he goes back. This is a fastball off the plate inside. You can see Alomar could not get the barrel of the bat out there, so he got jammed. But he was upset on the 3-0 pitch. He thought it was ball 4. And you see Larry Heisel there in the background. That's one of the things he told me before you see, saying that was ball 4. But he told me that they were swinging at pitchers out of the strike zone. And that's one of the reasons that they're not producing as they had in the past. They're swinging at pitchers' best pitch on the first pitch or something.
The Mounters swinging the first pitch twice, and now the 3rd time, and he's made it out each time. Well, Mussina retires the top 3 in order again. We go to the 7th. 3-1 Orioles. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by Pep Boys. For quality parts, accessories, and service, come to Pep Boys, America's automotive supercenter. Dwight Smith hit a home run his first time, struck out his second time, and now here he leads it off into the 7th inning, taking ball 1 from Todd Stottlemyre. This is John Miller, along with Joe Morgan, your Sunday night telecasters from the SkyDome, the home of the world champion Jays. And that one is in there for a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike to Dwight Smith. This Toronto club has just been so solid. In the last 5 seasons, they've won a division title 4 times. And then, of course, the last 2 years, they won the whole thing. And, of course, 2 years ago, a lot of people just thought, well, Atlanta is clearly the superior team, but they underestimated the Blue Jays. And I think people underestimated them again last year when they faced the Phillies. And, of course, that's called a strike, and Dwight Smith's not so sure. 2-2 the count, but I don't know if we'll ever see a game quite like Game 4 of that World Series again, Joe. 15-14. The Jays won. That's a foul tip. What a great breaking ball again by Stottlemyre. Well, a little bit earlier, there was a swing and a miss, and the bat ended up in the stands. That's the fellow got hit. They've wrapped his arm in some ice, and they've given him a bat. We wondered about it. Pat Borders was the man who lost the bat. Look out.
And he protected himself by sticking his arm out. Now he has some ice on it.
Yeah, you know, it's like being in the big leagues now, Joe. They've wrapped his arm just like the big leaguers. Wrapped that arm in the ice bag. And he's got the big league bat as well.
John, I saw another note in the paper, and it's kind of a sad note. Marvelous Marv Throneberry passed away. He was 60 years old, and most people who are familiar with the New York Mets in their early year will remember Throneberry. In 1962, he hit 16 home runs and drove in 49 runs on a team that lost 120 games.
Although that's not what most people remember about with Throneberry that year. Throneberry became sort of a cult figure among Mets fans that year, and the writers who covered the ball club. The misadventures of Marv Throneberry sometimes. The one story, he hit a triple, driving a couple of runs against the Cubs one day. And the Cubs appealed that he missed first base. And Stengel went out, the manager of the Mets, to argue the call. And while he's arguing, the second base umpire came over to get involved in the argument and says, Case, quit arguing. He missed second base, too.
There were some wonderful stories of the Mets' early years, and he was a big part of that.
Marv Throneberry played for the Orioles for a brief time before he went to the Mets. 1 ball, 1 strike. The funny thing is, Joe, I had an occasion to chat with Marv Throneberry and ask him about some of those stories. And basically, he would always look at you like you were crazy. Like, where did you hear that story? That's ridiculous. Never happened. North Thornbury made a comeback of sorts in the national consciousness for the commercials, the beer commercials. And he passed away this weekend. North Thornbury at age 60. 1-2 to Jeffrey Hammonds, and down he goes. Stottlemyre has retired 8 in a row. Carter and Olerud coming up. The Jays are down by 2, 3-1 Orioles. He got 70.
And Minnesota has really played well since we've seen them last.
So that'll be 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, and for those of you in Minnesota, 7 Central. Kenny Lofton, 371 at the top of that order. Albert Bell, look at that, 363, 20 home runs. An exciting slugging ball club with 4 pretty good starters, as it turns out. Dennis Martinez and Jack Morris, 2 ancient warriors among them. Speaking of the old-time warriors, here's Joe Carter. Left field, Dwight Smith struggling, and he makes the catch. Joe Carter, first ball swinging, Joe. I recall the Blue Jays swinging at so many first pitches before.
Well, maybe they're a little overly aggressive, and that's one of the things that Cito said. Everyone was trying to pick everyone else up. First pitch fastball, it's really in on Carter. He lines it to left field. You can see that Smith is trying to stay below the lights with his eyes, and he finally makes the catch.
Here's John Olerud. Now, he's 2 for 2 tonight. You know, the other downside of the Blue Jays is if they lose this game, they will have lost 8 in a row, which is bad enough, but they are leaving town after tonight for their longest road trip of the year. They're going to be gone for 11 days.
You know, but John, sometimes that may help the team.
Broken bat right to McLemore. And that's the first time Olerud's been retired. He had singled twice earlier. 2 down, just like that.
Well, when a team is struggling, sometimes they need to get on the road, simply because, you know, they're expected to do a lot here in Toronto, and they hear about it every day that they're not playing well. So if you get on the road, all you have to do is concentrate on playing better, and maybe that'll happen for the Blue Jays, because they are a good enough team to win on the road.
It sounds like a cliche to say this, Joe, I guess, but it's also true, because you know the Blue Jays' track record. Somebody's going to start paying for this slump they've been in for a while, because Alomar, Carter, Molitor, Olerud, these guys are going to bust loose, and they're going to put some big numbers on the board here before too much longer. Mike Huff has doubled and hit into a double play, bluffs the bunt, takes a strike.
Well, one of the things that has happened throughout this slump of the Blue Jays is that Cito Gaston has maintained his cool, and he communicates with the players. A lot of times when your team starts to struggle, you go from John to hey you. You know, the manager gets upset when things aren't going well. But Cito tries to keep the same posture. He says he hopes to remain the same when you're winning as well as when you're losing.
Joe Carter, John Olerud. Look at that. Only 7 runs scored in the 7-game losing streak, and the team average is only 201. Change up, pull foul down the left field line. 1-2. Well, you know that's an aberration.
Right.
Things always look worse when you're in a slump like that, and they really are. Pat Gillick. This will be his final year as the general manager of the Jays. He'd like to go out with another championship.
Well, when I talked to him before the ball game, he wasn't sure that he was going to be able to do that, but he said this was his final year anyway. And he has been the architect of this Toronto Blue Jays team. I mean, he's made the trades that have put the Jays on top and helped them win 2 world championships. The most notable trade, of course, was bringing Alomar and Carter here for Freddie McGriff and Tony Fernandez. But he's made some other good trades.
Bringing the likes of Ricky Henderson here for the final couple months last year.
And he also brought Dwayne Ward in.
Brought in David Cone 2 years ago for the stretch run. And look at the world. And that, well, we'll look at it a little bit later, but right now Mike Mussina is making short work of the Jays. He has retired 7 in a row. We go to the 8th. Anderson, Sable, and Palmeiro coming up.
Good night, Sal.
2 for 3 with a steal and a home run. Deep and foul down the left field line for Brady Anderson.
John, I think we should give, you know, Stottlemyre credit for pitching well, as most of the Blue Jay starters in the last few days have pitched. But at the beginning of the season, it was their bullpen. Couldn't hold leads. But now they can't score enough runs. But Guzman pitched well enough to win yesterday, and Todd is definitely pitching well enough to win
And
today.
I'll say this, early in the year when they were scoring a lot of runs, the starting pitching was not that
Right,
good.
exactly.
And the bullpen either. Both of them were lacking.
So now it's changed to going the other way.
But this weekend, for instance, Friday night, the starter, Pat Henkin, went 8 innings, 1 run allowed. But then against the bullpen, the Orioles got 4 in the ninth, beat Dave Righetti. Eichhorn won it. And then yesterday, it was 1-1 into the 8th. Guzman had a 1-hitter going for Toronto. And then Cal Ripken's 2-run homer. They wanted to win that ball game 4-1. And now Stottlemyre. The starting pitchers for the Blue Jays have a 2.31 ERA in this series right through the 7th inning tonight. There's a long drive, high in the air, deep to right. Carter back, all the way back, and it's gone again. Second home run of the game for Brady Anderson, his 9th of the year. It is 4-1 for the Orioles.
Well, basically, Brady Anderson has been the one to really hurt Stottlemyre. He's hit 2 home runs, but he also had the single that got Hammonds around to third base where he scored on a ground ball. Another pitch down and in. And we talked about left-handed hitters being low ball hitters. That pitch fits perfectly for Brady Anderson's swing.
Here's Sabo, strike 1. Sabo 0 for 3, but he does have a run batted in. Brady Anderson, big night. And that's a ball. Back in April 26th, Joe, at Camden Yards, Brady Anderson had a game where he had 2 home runs and 2 doubles. That's not a bad night.
A lot of total bases.
It's 12 total bases he had and scored 4 times in that game. Tonight, 2 homers and a single. Sabo hits one high in the air to center field. Devon White going back. And it's out number 1.
The difficult part about this for the Blue Jays is it's very tough to give Mike Mussina a 4-run or 3-run cushion this late in the ball game, knowing that Lee Smith is sitting out there in the bullpen.
Yep. That's the view from the bar out in center field. Sight lines. They sell bar stools and a season ticket basis out there. Here is Rafael Palmeiro. There's a high fly ball. Carter in right center. Palmeiro's gone just like that. A lot of first ball swinging tonight. Palmeiro 0 for 3 with a walk. 4-1, the Orioles ahead of the 8th inning. Yeah, Lee Smith, 25 saves. He's got more saves individually than most teams' entire bullpens have right now. He pitched here yesterday. The only thing is today, in this ball game, as Cal Ripken comes up, Mike Mussina has thrown only 77 pitches through 7 innings.
I mentioned a lot of first ball hitting by the Blue Jays.
To Stottlemyre, and I thought Cal broke his bat on that one. Cal is 0 for 4. Another run for the Orioles, though. It is 4-1 Baltimore. We go to the last of the 8th. 4-1. One thing that the Blue Jays had been able to depend on all year long, even though they'd been struggling, was winning here. But even now, the Blue Jays' home advantage seems to have disappeared. This entire losing streak has occurred here. Here's Ed Sprague. He struck out twice in this game. And that one is foul.
And, John, what that tells you is exactly what you were saying. They were sitting there, first ball, fastball hitting off of Mussina, and he just was so far out in front, he was determined to swing at a fastball.
Sprague struck out in the 2nd in what really, in retrospect, looks like one of the key circumstances of the game. Brady Anderson, the ball's hit well, but it's just the wrong place to hit it in this ballpark. One away. Back in the 2nd, they had runners at 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, and a scoreless game.
And Mussina got really tough. Good fastball on the inside corner to get Sprague. Now watch this stop. And you talked about him throwing balls off the wall and learning to field his position. Excellent fielder. And it came in handy there, saved a couple of runs.
And that was Borders who hit the comebacker. Yeah, Mussina had not grabbed that one. That might have been 2 runs. A check swing on the changeup. Sabo throws him out.
Well, he's looking for a fastball, and he committed too quickly on the pitch. He thought it was a fastball. He got halfway there. He realized it wasn't. Tried to check his swing, and you see Stottlemyre saying, well, he's making it look easy out there. It's difficult for me, but he's making it look easy.
He said, asking his pitching coach, Galen Siska, he says, Galen, teach me how to make that happen, will you?
Well, let's see if Cedeno takes a pitch. Yeah, at least he's smart enough not to let Mussina get out of this inning with 3 pitches.
Well, Cedeno is the 27th batter of the game. Mussina's only faced, up to this point, 3 over the minimum. He got a 4-hitter going. That's a swing and a miss. 1 ball, 1 strike. 9 different batters have put the first pitch in play, which doesn't even tell you how many have swung at the first pitch. But 9 have actually put it in play. 8 of them for outs. Only 1 for a hit.
Well, like the theories I gave you about pitching, you know, pitching coaches have theories, hitting coaches have theories. Some have theories if a guy's going to throw you a fastball, go up and hit it. Others have theories that make the guy work if he's getting you out as easily as Mussina is doing. You know, take a couple of pitches here and there, maybe he will miss, and then he falls behind, and then he has to give you a pitch.
Devon White on deck. 4-1, the Orioles ahead. We're in the last of the 8th. There's Larry Heisel, the hitting coach. Foul away.
And John, when I talked to Heisel before the game about the woes of the hitters on the Blue Jays, he said a lot of times they're swinging at the pitcher's pitch. You know, if the pitcher's best pitch is a curveball and he throws it down and away, a lot of times they're attacking that pitch instead of taking it, especially before they get behind in the count.
Strike 3. The changeup got him looking. Mike Mussina has dazzled him through 8. We go to the 9th inning. Harold Baines coming up. 4-1 Orioles. Is warming up in the Toronto bullpen. Castillo has pitched real well this year for Toronto.
Well, he was one of the guys that Dave Stewart said was having a better year and a career year that you need if you're going to win championship.
Coming up Wednesday, the big doubleheader. Those longtime rivals, the Yankees and the Red Sox. The former Red Sox, Wade Boggs, hitting .341. And he'll have to do it against the Rocket, Roger Clemens. The Yanks and the Sox at Fenway Park, 7:30 Eastern. Then the Giants and the Dodgers. Matt Williams, 27 homers. Bonds hit 2 today. Mike Piazza, he's having a fabulous year for the first-place Dodgers. Very important game with the Giants, who are well down in the standings. It's the Yankees and the Red Sox, then the Giants and Dodgers, all on the same night, only on ESPN. Here is Lonnie Smith, the pinch hitter for Harold Baines. It's in there. That's a hit. It was trapped by Huff. And the veteran, Lonnie Smith, gets the pinch hit single, which will bring up Chris Hoyles.
Well, Lonnie Smith's first ball hitting, and he likes the ball in. That ball, he just reaches out, and he actually gets jammed a little bit, but he gets a lot of top spin on his balls. And that one dropped before Huff could get to it.
Lonnie's first pinch hit as an Oriole. It's only the 3rd pinch hit the Orioles as a team have had this year. They were 2 for 17 prior to this game. Here's Hoyles. Flying to center, grounded to short, and also reached on a catcher's interference call. Outside from Castillo. Well, Todd Stottlemyre, 8 innings, 4 runs, 6 hits allowed, 7 strikeouts. Some nights in the past for the Blue Jays, that would have been plenty enough to have him way ahead right now.
Well, especially if you hold that lead, you know, hold the runs down for that long a period of time. You ask your starting pitcher to, you know, hold the other team down to 1 or 2 runs for 6 innings, you figure you will have scored by then.
Foul tip, 1 ball, 1 strike. Now the Orioles bullpen is also busy. And there is Lee Smith, the big closer for the Orioles, who is just having a fabulous first half. Elrod Hendricks, the bullpen coach, right behind there with his arms folded. And the Orioles a long, long while. Lee Smith him in Baltimore. They start chanting Lee, Lee, Lee. He comes to the mound in game 6. Popped up by Hoyles. Olerud. One away. Now we'll get another pinch hitter here. I would imagine. Dwight Smith due up. And Jack Voigt will come up. Dwight Smith homered back in the 3rd to put the Orioles ahead 1-0. And Joe, when you talk about Todd Stottlemyre's game, as Dwight Smith is retired for the night, Stottlemyre was able to stay out of the rallies pretty much. Didn't have a whole lot of trouble in this game, but he gave up 3 solo homers. That was pretty much the Orioles' offense. Brady Anderson hit the other 2 after Dwight Smith homered in the 3rd.
And it's a low pitch out over the plate, and he hits it over the right center field wall for his first home run of this ball game. The next one's a breaking ball down and in. Although it's a fastball down and in, and he drives that one down the right field line for a home run.
So here's Jack Voigt. Well, for Brady Anderson, his 4th 2-homer game, 2nd of this year. Strike 1 to Voigt. Here's Brady. And it feels good. He had gone 2 for 29 before tonight. And then he made it out his first time up tonight. But then the single in the 3rd, which set up a big run. And then the 2 home runs. 3 for 4 for Brady. Little bloop back to first and foul ground, and that will fall untouched. 2 strikes to Voigt. Art McLemore is on deck. Next Sunday will be at Jacobs Field, Cleveland. The Cleveland Indians, the best record in the Central Division. They're ahead of even the Chicago White Sox. Although the White Sox just swept a 4-game series in Seattle to draw close. The White Sox are 2 games out there. We'll see Cleveland and the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota's only 4 games back of Cleveland over there in the Central. We'll see Kirby Puckett and Dave Winfield, Chuck Knobloch, Kent Herbeck, and we'll see Carlos Baerga, Kenny Lofton, Albert Bell, Eddie Murray. The slugging Cleveland team. Next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. 4-1 the score here. The world champion Jays down again. And that's a ball, 1-2. One thing, though, that you know in this game, Joe, with the Baltimore club last year, they started the year 21-30. Terribly disappointed. Then they won 19 out of 22. That changed things dramatically. Cleveland just had that 18-game home winning streak. They went to, what, 20-5 in a long stretch there. So if the Blue Jays run off a stretch like that, they're going to get Danny Cox back maybe in a week, and maybe Dwayne Ward very shortly.
Dwayne Ward threw on the side today, said he felt great. I talked to him after he threw, and he may go down for rehab himself in a few days. So if they can get Cox back and, of course, Dwayne Ward back, they will be a different ball club. It'll just help you psychologically if you get those players back, to know that they are the championship quality players that you have in this ball club last year. But I don't think there's any doubt that they miss the hitting at the bottom of the order that they had last year. And it starts with Olerud on down through Sprague. And last year they had Tony Fernandez in that spot. He's no longer here. But that's the way it goes. I mean, the Blue Jays have changed teams each of the last 3 years. This one is just not doing as well as the previous 2.
1-2 to Voigt, 1 out. Lonnie Smith at first, and back to the bag he goes. Also, a couple of the rookies they were counting on, like Alex Gonzalez, who opened the year at short, and Carlos Delgado, who had such a great April. You know, they might get things together at the minor leagues and be back sometime in July or August.
Well, the one that surprised me the most is Delgado. I really thought that he was going to be here for a long period of time.
Out of play.
Larry Heisel, the hitting instructor, was surprised as well. He said the reason that he's surprised is because Delgado used to hit the ball the other way, and he wasn't like a lot of young players who just tried to pull the ball and hit home runs. He went the other way, and he was just surprised when he just had so many problems with the breaking ball all of a sudden. He said he just found that he couldn't handle it. But before, he wasn't really a pull hitter, and that's usually a good sign for a young player.
That one is belted to left field. Huff back. It's off the wall. Lonnie Smith heading for third. Boyd heading for second. The throw is into second base, and he's in there with a double. Alomar back to third, and Smith back to the bag. Jack Boyd with a pinch hit double off the left field wall. He really drilled it.
The only reason it stayed in the ballpark, it just wasn't high enough to carry out. He hit it hard enough, but it hits about halfway up the wall in left field. Pitch up and in the middle of the plate. You can see Castillo is surprised that he threw the ball there, and it hits off. Good play in left field there by Huff. He gets the ball back into second base very quickly, but not in time to get Boyd, who goes in with a double. Now they have runners at second and third, and the Blue Jays have to play the infield in. They cannot fall any farther behind.
Here's McLemore. Ball one outside. 4 runs, 7 hits for the Orioles with 1 error. 1 run, 4 hits, and 1 error. For the Blue Jays, McLemore has struck out twice and grounded a second once. Well, of course, if the Orioles get a run here, it no longer is a save situation for Lee Smith. I guess it would be kind of a luxury for John Oates to be able to take Mussina out after he's only thrown less than 100 pitches. He's thrown 87 pitches. Well, Big Lee will stay up in case they need him. And Mussina's still in there and watching the action in the dugout. Pitched a beauty tonight. That's foul away. Mussina also had one back in May against the Jays at Camden Yards that got the Orioles a sweep. Complete game 7-hitter against Toronto. Gave up 1 run in that one. And just dominated the Jays. Retired the last 8 in a row. Seemed to be at his strongest at the end of the game. He just truly is one of the outstanding young pitchers in the game. A win tonight will be his 11th of the year. And in the American League, only Jimmy Key, the former Blue Jay, has that many wins. Jimmy Key with 11. In the National League, nobody has 11.
If it was one of the other Orioles hitting, this might not be a bad situation to walk McLemore and give yourself a chance at trying to get a ground ball to get the double play, but it has to be hit very sharply at an infielder in order to double up Hammonds. He's a very difficult guy to double up, so maybe not a good walk after all, even though you had a base open.
Now there's Timlin in the bullpen, and he's been ready for a while. But Cito Gaston just apparently has no confidence in him whatsoever. Timlin with a 6.66 ERA. They thought he might be the closer in the absence of Dwayne Ward. But instead, he's not been able to get anybody out in any role. And here's Cito staying with his left-hander instead of going to Timlin. He did this also Friday night. He started the 9th inning with a string of right-handed hitters coming up. And instead of going to Timlin in the bullpen, he went to the left-hander Dave Righetti. Righetti proceeded to allow 4 runs. And Cito doing it again here, and I guess it just tells you all you need to know about how Cito feels about Timlin right now. A strike. Bases loaded. The middle infield looking for the double play ball. Sprague at third and Olerud at first, pulled in. Lonnie Smith at third base. And that's Voit over at second and McLemore at first. And you get a look at the inner defense there. Jeffrey Hammonds 1 for 3. A chance to bust this game wide open now in the 9th inning. That one is a little low on the inside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, when you are in the situation that the Blue Jays are in, and you're Cito Gaston, you just have to find out who can do what. And he's convinced maybe that Timlin is struggling right now. He wants to give him some time off, so he gave Righetti a chance, and he couldn't do it either on that particular occasion.
The curveball bounced foul by Hammonds. Well, Castillo's ahead of the count, 1-2, and you've got the left-hander batting Anderson on deck. There's Lonnie Smith at third base, Boyd at second, and McLemore at first. And now Galen Cisco, the pitching coach, heads out to the mound to visit with Tony Castillo. Pat Borders also out there. You mentioned Mark Throneberry, who passed away this weekend. One of the first-year Mets. Well, Galen Cisco was one of the early Mets as well. He suffered on the mound for the early Mets. Don't forget now, tonight at midnight, Switzerland versus Colombia. The most comprehensive World Cup coverage right here on ESPN. Tape delayed coverage coming up tonight. Then tomorrow at 3:55 Eastern, it's a pair of crucial Group C matches. Germany takes on South Korea on ESPN. And also at the same time, Spain versus Bolivia on ESPN2. Catch all the World Cup action right here on ESPN. 1-2 the count to Hammonds. Bases loaded, 1 out. Borders kind of caught that one awkwardly, I thought.
Well, Castillo thought the pitch got a lot of the plate, but I couldn't tell exactly why. Borders seemed to be a little bit off balance there.
Two and two to Jeffrey Hammonds. The Jays will have the top of their order up in the last of the inning. Down the third base line. Sprague goes home and he hits Lonnie Smith. Now also heading home is Voigt. He's in. The ball will go over to the seats. Heading home is McLemore. And he is safe, and the ball is dropped. Hammonds holding at second. And the fans are furious. The Toronto Blue Jays, the world champions, have done their 1962 Mets imitation.
Well, the Blue Jays may have just reached rock bottom, and there's only one way to go from there. First of all, I thought Sprague should have tagged third and threw to first base for the double play.
He was right next to the bag.
But he made a tough throw when the runner's coming down the line and you don't have a good angle. It's a very difficult play to make. And we'll get a look at it. Now, first of all, watch how close Sprague is to third base. Now, right there, just tag third and throw to first base. You've got a double play. Instead, he wants to come home, and he actually hits Lonnie Smith in the head, looks like. Chased down by Castillo. He throws it past Borders, and Borders drops the ball as another run scores.
And
I don't know how to score all this yet.
Well, we haven't even showed the whole play yet. Then there was that last guy coming home, Joe, that they had.
Right.
McLemore was going to be out, but you got to hold the ball to get the out.
So there are at least 3 errors there.
And so far, they've scored at a fielder's choice, an error on Sprague in the throw home, an error on Castillo on the next throw that was wild, and it seems like Borders should get called for an error for dropping that throw that came back to the plate, doesn't it?
Yes, that's the 3rd error.
Here's Brady Anderson popping it up. And the sarcastic cheer of the SkyDome crowd as Sprague handles that one. 7-1, the Orioles ahead. They bust the game open on what should have been an inning-ending double play. Jeffrey Hammonds, made it to second, and the third base coach, as that ball went back to the backstop after Borders dropped it. Jerry Narron, the third base coach, was waving him to come over to third, and I think Hammonds might have been just too embarrassed to go to third in that place. No, that's enough. This is fine. He had to face the Jays later this year yet. Chris Sabo, the hitter. Off the glove, and now Sabo, or rather Hammonds, will go to third. Now here, let's take a look at that whole play, Joe.
And again, watch Sprague. He'll catch the ball near the bag. Normally a third baseman tags the bag and throws to first base for the double play. But he chose to come home, and he hits Lonnie Smith. Castillo throws it away. Now Sprague chases it down. Now he has the runner at the plate, and Borders drops it again.
Well, apparently they're not going to give Borders an error on that last play. Sabo pops it up. Shallow left. Up. It was fairly close most of the way, and then the Toronto Blue Jays self-destructed. Top of the order coming up. In 1994. And, Joe, I'm starting to get the picture now. 7-1 Orioles. And, of course, Mike Mussina is certainly not a guy you want to face when you got a 7-game losing streak. I mean, he's one of the premier pitchers in baseball. 1 unearned run is all he's allowed tonight. Devon White with a swinging strike 1. Mussina has not allowed a hit since the 4th inning. And he has not allowed a base runner since a walk to Borders in the 5th inning. He's retired 10 in a row. The knuckle curve is high. 1-1. Jack Voigt now playing left field for the Orioles after he entered as a hitter for Dwight Smith. There's Voigt now in left field.
John, sometimes as a professional athlete, you have to hit rock bottom before you know the way back to the top. And if this doesn't wake up the Toronto Blue Jays, I don't think anything will, because they have been embarrassed in front of their home crowd, especially here in the 9th inning. And sometimes that will wake you up.
And they've been embarrassed in front of most of the baseball community on Sunday Night Baseball, the one game that almost everybody in baseball gets a chance to watch. And of course, we're also on the TSN network here in Canada. It's a base hit for Devon White. Alan Mills, the right-hander. Jim Poole, the left-hander, up in the Orioles bullpen now. Lee Smith has taken a seat now that it's a much bigger margin for the Orioles. Now, Joe, do you think psychologically, I know you were a guy who hit pitches, who tried to damage him, but if you're Mike Mussina, he pitched a tough ball game against a good club, and it's been tight all the way, and now it's been blown open. Can the concentration tend to wane in a spot like this?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that you don't pitch with quite the same intensity 7-1 as you would if you were ahead only by 1 run. But Mussina's been in this position before. He knows how to close out a ball game. I don't think you are going to find he's going to throw fastballs right down the middle and say hit it. He's still throwing hard. That's 91 miles an hour on the last fastball.
John Oates, the manager. His big two, the young Mussina and the young McDonald. The two of them have won 20 games this year. Baltimore has 2 10-game winners. Mussina 3 outs from becoming an 11-game winner. McLemore to Ripken for the force out on Devon White. No chance to double up Alomar. One out, one on. Alomar is 0 for 3 tonight with a sacrifice fly. And here's Molitor. Now, we have seen Molitor for 3 pitches in this game. And he has swung at the first pitch every time and has made it out every time.
And to me, that's unusual for a good hitter, because if it doesn't work the first couple of times up, usually you will take a pitch just to see a different, just to see another pitch and maybe be able to gauge his arm speed better.
But is that what Cito is telling us? Hey, the club's struggling. Some of the hitters are not doing their normal routine right now.
Well, that's true. They're all trying to carry the other players on their shoulders. Well, he took a pitch, but it was a ball.
The Orioles trying to make it 6 straight victories against the Jays this year. Something they have not done since 1980, when the Jays were still in their early expansion days. The Orioles won their first 7 that year. I mean, the Orioles' worst nightmare these last 5 years has been the Toronto Blue Jays. They were in a pennant race in '89 against each other. And the Jays that year won the division against the Orioles in this ballpark the final weekend of the year by coming from behind in the late innings 2 straight days. And they have done that to the Orioles ever since. Always taking Oriole leads and coming from behind. They've done it on Sunday Night Baseball against the Orioles. Now, Sabo to second, 1. McLemore to first. 2. Double play. The ball game is over. And Joe, the Orioles are heading on to Cleveland themselves now for a big series. But the Blue Jays with 8 straight losses, and they look terrible, particularly in the 9th tonight.
Well, again, the Blue Jays are going to have to bounce back. They've hit rock bottom as far as I'm concerned. But if you're taking a look at the Orioles, you have to realize the Orioles still need some starting pitching. They have Mussina and McDonald. But Mussina pitched tonight, so they're going into Cleveland not at full strength. So it's going to be a long season. I still think the Blue Jays are going to be a factor before the season is over.
Mike Mussina joins Jimmy Key as the only 2 11-game winners in the major leagues. He went the distance with a 5-hitter at the SkyDome. We'll see you next Sunday night at Jacobs Field. Kirby Puckett of the Minnesota Twins, Albert Bell, Eddie Murray, and the Cleveland Indians. We'll see you then. John Miller for Joe Morgan from the SkyDome. The Baltimore Orioles have swept the Blue Jays for the first time at the SkyDome ever, 7-1. Now let's go to Gary Miller.